broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African American owned broadcasting studio. We believe digital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. When We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again. Good evening, and welcome to Doc and Sock. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the Deep South. Jackson, Mississippi, a small city, population of some 170,000 people, with an infrastructure capable of carrying 500,000 and more. You see, Jackson has seen such a migration from the city, people moving out, going for better places, looking for better opportunity, while those of us that remain in Jackson are carrying the responsibility to make this a better place. You know, we all can't run in the time of trouble. Somebody has to stand and fight. Somebody has to stand in the gap for those who wish to have a better life but have been dealt some serious setbacks. And a setback, quite frankly, could be just the zip code that you were born in. The setback could be whether or not there were one or two adults in your household. The setback could be whether or not you were eligible for food stamps, WIC, and SNAP, and other programs of that nature. So this 170,000 people that remain in the city of Jackson, I salute you. Stand your ground. Make Jackson great again. Make African Americans rise to the true position of leadership that our ancestors have. Ancestors that build this civilization on the banks of the Nile. Ancestors that led to many inventions and discoveries all across this world, from the first heart transplant, and you could just go on and on and on and on. As always, I salute those African Americans that gave their full commitment to this struggle. You know, it's a difference between the hog and the chicken. You know, the hog makes a contribution to breakfast, you know, but, I mean, the chicken makes a contribution. It gives an egg and walks on off. But the hog, he has to make a total commitment. He has to get hit in the head and killed and scald and peel the hair off of him, and his skin be so white you could just be blinding when you do that to him. Even though, as a grown hog, he had black hair. And so this is the kind of things that we're talking about here on this show, week in and week out. How can we find a way to make African Americans rise to their true potential, to take their rightful place in society, and quit being looked upon as lazy and shiftless and irresponsible and deadbeat, and those kind of old adjectives that we hear too often used when we're describing our brothers and our sisters. And it's depressing and it's heartbreaking, and we're going to have to do something about it. Now, those of you that are watching us out there on Facebook, then we want you to share this program with your friends and families. You know, our fan club on Facebook is growing every day, and we appreciate your support. Share this program. Put some down in the comments in the chat box. Let us get back to you later on. Call us at 800-492-5186. Those of you that are watching us on YouTube at We Believe Digital Podcast on our channel over there, then we want you to subscribe to the program. Our subscription base is growing each and every day. We look at the role model that I've always said that has established this for us, and that's my good friend out there, Roland Martin. Wonderful job that he is doing. And we are on a mission to just pull up beside you, Roland. We're not necessarily trying to pull ahead, but we want to pull up beside you and help bring African Americans into a prominent position in this world of media. So if you're watching us on YouTube, on We Believe Digital Podcast, share the program with your friends and family. Get ready for the many opportunities for you to support this program through our store on Shopify and other outlets as well. Now, if you're watching us on our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com, you'll know that we are a platform and not a page. You'll see on that platform that there are all kinds of playlists there, for you can go back and watch all of the shows of Socrates Garrett Live. You can watch all of the shows of Organize, Don't Criticize with Dr. Henderson, and you can watch all of the shows of Doc and Sock, where he and I co-host this show. And all of the rest of the great shows there, Prove Them Wrong, The Hurt Is the Same, and the list goes on and on and on. Right there on WeBelieveDigital.com. But also on WeBelieveDigital.com, you will find WBLV Radio. WBLV Radio, where we play some of the best music in the world. Soft soul, music from Boogie down in Miami, Florida. That's rolling every day on WBLV. On Wednesdays and Friday nights, HT3 with some of the best music you ever want to hear right there on WBLV. My good friend Randy Wildman Brown, a young man that has done so much to move this studio forward, a young man that has come in as an intern when he was in school at Jackson State University, and has come in and has put together some of the best programming that you ever want to hear. Wildman Brown, known throughout this entire industry as one of the very, very best, and he was a #1 draft choice for WBLV. So you can see on that platform, WeBelieveDigital.com, we have a lot to offer and a lot for you to choose from. We need your support. There's also a donate button there. We want you to donate to the program. Let us know. Send us stars, send us flowers, send us likes, send us hearts, send us all that, but send us some cash as well, because we need that. To our friends in London, we're watching you every day when we run the analytics on our shows. We see that we have a large audience in London. We appreciate that. A large following in Nigeria. We appreciate that very, very much. When we take a look at New York City, a large following in New York City, checking out WBLV and this podcast show each and every week. Now, to those that are commenting on the shows that Doc and Sock are bringing each week, we realize that we spark some controversy and we make you think. And some of your comments are appreciated. Some of them are really off the cuff. Some say that there was never an issue with racism or slavery and that we ought to just get over it. We ought to just move on. It's no time to be talking about that's foolishness. Some say that the history needs to be told, and especially in Mississippi, where critical race theory has been banned from our states. Some say this is the only platform that they will learn anything about African American history. And it's so much to learn, so much to be thankful for. But now, my co-host is here with me this evening, and we're going to get right into our show after a brief introduction of him. I always say that he's a dangerous man. What makes him dangerous? Because he was born on a plantation in the Mississippi Delta. Born on a plantation in the Mississippi Delta. This is not something that you read about. This is something that he lived through. This is something that he had to endure each and every day that God let him wake up. And Dr. Henderson is a learned man and one of the most sought after speakers in this entire country, because he's not only book smart, but he's street smart. His life experiences need to be shared. So if you're looking for a great speaker out there, I want you to contact him so that he can come in and share some of the wonderful blessings that God has bestowed upon him and some of the tyranny that his life has experienced by being a black man in Mississippi, having fought for this country in the Vietnam War and having served in every way possible, but yet denied the opportunity for fair housing, the right to vote, no finance opportunities available in his lifetime and mine. And so, Dr. Henderson, it's always good having you in the studio, sir. How have you been?
Well, I've been fine, sir. I've been fine. It's been cool, a little rain here and there, and that makes me feel good. That's something that I expect to happen during the winter season. You have to prepare for it before it happens. Don't complain when it's happening, and prepare for the better days. That's what I do.
Well, Doc, I told the audience that you were one of the most sought-after speakers in the country. Share a little bit about how people can get in touch with you.
Okay, well, it's very simple, folks. All you have to do is call us at 601-201-1957, or you can email us at clu369@gmail.com. And we really enjoy speaking at family reunions, churches, schools, and especially community organizations. We talk about education and training, economic development, politics, religion, and leadership, principles of leadership, and tell you how you can change your life, your status, and your family in 30, 60, or 90 days if you use what we call the Henderson plan, which I'm not going to go through at this time. But you're not going to get away with good things in your life if you continue to do what you're doing. Have to make some changes. So folks, call us when you need to, and that ought to be next week.
Doc, let's get right into the program. Last night, we were talking about some critical things, and we left off talking about the state of Mississippi has just announced they call a special session, and they authorized the state to invest several $1 million into the infrastructure development for a Chinese-owned firm up on the east side of I-55. Now, Doc, you were born, I believe, on the west side of I-55. Has there been any developments on the west side that you can recall?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
But now, development can be a blessing or a curse. They had some wonderful development in my part of the country. It was called casinos and lottery. Nothing that's productive, nothing that would put money in your pocket. It was designed to take money out of your pocket, and people fell for it when the government told them, we are going to have the lottery in Mississippi, and after we pay a few expenses, the money is going to be put in education. And people put it in effect, and we have not seen a major shift in our education policy financially. Matter of fact, it's been worse since they passed the lottery.
Now, Doc, casinos, as you say, are not really a development tool. It's designed to keep the poor poor. It's designed to facilitate the breaking up of families and homes. You know, when you spend the rent money, Doc, or the grocery money, or the child's savings for college, that family's probably going to split.
That's a fact, and that's what happens. It happened and has happened in all of our families. You'll be surprised how many families have lost everything they've had, gambling, playing the lottery, and at bingo parties. And all of that's legal in the state. And in most places in our state is in the poorest region or the poorest county available. And it is not protested against by the candidates that's going to be going there day and night to lose their money. They think they're going to win. And many people lose more than they gain in most cases.
Now, Doc, they tell me this firm is owned by Chinese. There's a real concern in the African American community that immigrants are displacing them in the urban cities, and they are being relegated to some reservation, urban ghettos, to live, while immigrants are coming in and displacing them, taking their jobs and all of the benefits, etc. And so when we get a company that's owned by China, how does that help Americans build wealth in their lives?
Well, it doesn't help very much, but I did research today. I understand that the Chinese own about 10% of the company. As a matter of fact, there's 3 major companies that the governor mentioned, and they are going to come into this state and get rich. And he's going to hire people. Allegedly, they will be making $66,000 a year. We know who that's going to be. It's not going to be the people that live up in my part of the country, the Delta or South Mississippi. It won't be those in Central Mississippi, and especially those in Jackson that's born and raised and educated in West Jackson and South Jackson. So who will they be? It will not be the poor Hispanics in Mississippi. And it won't be the students that attended the so-called poor county schools, public schools, and it won't be but 2 or 3 that graduated from the so-called black colleges and universities. So therefore, anyone that just heard what I said will tell and know who the candidates for those jobs are going to be. And I don't have to tell you who they are.
Wow. Now, Doc, that's on the east side of 55. The majority of the European population resides on the east side of I-55, and 80 to 90% of the African American population is on the west side of I-55. Is that the same as it was when you were a boy, when we were separated by the railroad track?
Yes, exactly.
I-55 the new railroad track?
Exactly. They did all the cities like that. When I was born, there was something called the railroad track. You could be dead and know when you get in the black part of town, because that railroad track would wake you up. Then, when I got older, when I got about 25, they decided to make it worse. They decided, I believe it was President Eisenhower, had the Congress to pass some legislation to build a national highway system, and they got the American maps and looked at all the areas where the blacks had businesses, and they went through all of those areas, and sometimes they were so blatant with their racism, they would put the railroad, the highway system, right above the black district on high tiers, and put a train there and cars. That was the highway go directly through the black business district. Wow. And if they had a little black town, they would always look at that same map and cut by that town that had a black majority, because it was so small they couldn't make any money by destroying the city. They wouldn't get nowhere, and they made it worse by bypassing the little black town and destroying the black business districts all over America.
So are you saying that these bypasses are designed to starve the economy in small towns?
Small towns, small black towns are where there's basically a majority of blacks in those small towns. They are not in a position to get the economic gain. In most cases, those small black towns have a lot of blacks that are working, making less than a minimum wage. You know, they just recently got the minimum wage. and they are usually miseducated, so they don't have a lot of skills. And when they get a little job and make that $2 and $3 a day or $5 a day, you will find that they stay there all their lives. Many of them will not even ever leave the state unless they go into a cousin's funeral in Chicago or California. And that has been happening in my family for the last 75 years. Many of them are still on that plantation that I was born on in the Delta and the one I lived on for 17 years in Hinds County.
Now, Doc, if you're traveling south on 55 and you want to go to Dallas, Texas, and you're coming out of Memphis, you don't have to go through any parts of Jackson. You can just bypass the city completely.
Of course. That's a fact.
You can take 220 and go around the city and not buy no gas, not stop and live in no hotel. You can just bypass the little black city altogether. And based upon the way we're portrayed in the news, that we don't have any water and that we can't flush our commodes and we got the highest crime rate in America, why would anyone want to stop here?
Well, they don't even know to stop here because they can't see it. And there will be some changes in that area for sure. Right now, they have something down in the Byram area that they spent millions of dollars to build an exchange. I call it a little minor highway system. There's no development there now. But in a few years, that Byram area is going to be a major outlet for a major city because they are getting their independence. They're going to have their own water system. They already have their own police system. They have their own government that used to be a fragment of Hinds County. And all that's been legislated to be an independent territory. And when they go and build that new highway system they have there, it is set to not be any part of Jackson, Mississippi. That's the double deal where they're going to be excluded.
Jackson, Mississippi is headed to tombstone territory.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
We'll see hay rolling down the streets and wildflowers rolling down the streets if we're not careful.
Well, that's not going to happen. That's going to be told by some that they can expect that. But I know enough about history and economic development. I know that Jackson, Mississippi will be a very prosperous city in the next 15 years.
Explain.
Well, you're going to have a new thrust of leadership because the so-called black folks in this area of Jackson and Hinds County not going to have significant political positions as they have today. Now, they have the numbers here today, but they don't have control of the money to the point where they can share it within the black community, even though they can tell who's going to get the funds. It's usually someone that has a company that is not in the black community.
Now, Doc, let me interrupt you because my understanding is that Jackson is 85% black and blacks run the entire government.
No, blacks, that first part is correct. Blacks don't run the entire government. They are the delegates or people that run the government. They are the delegates and the chosen ones that disperse the money and the contracts. Whenever they have a major problem, you will find, and you know from experience, that you're not going to have these black people that's running the so-called departments, the agencies and commissions, give contracts to black people. They are not going to do it. They have not done it. And the few that they gave them to, if that person would declare to support a candidate that didn't win versus one that did, he or she will not get any more contracts. And the same big companies, we have done the research, the same big construction companies have gotten over 90% of all major black contracts in any city in this state where blacks are in the majority.
Wow.
And they've been doing it for years.
Wow.
30 and 40 years.
Now, Doc, let's talk about contracts for a minute then. Let me give my viewers out there a little background. 2 years ago, the city of Jackson sent out a request for proposal for a company to do garbage collection. That's picking up your household trash twice a week in a city that has a population of about 175,000, about 55,000 homes. And when the RFP came back and was scored by the administration, and the administration recommended that a black firm, Richards Disposal Company, be awarded the contract. A black firm, and many of us that are African Americans were celebrating the fact that here we are with a black firm that has been recommended to have a contract worth over $10 million to pick up garbage inside of a black city. Now, Doc, the celebration was short-lived because the recommendation by the administration that went to the majority black council, they denied the recommendation.
That's a fact.
And they wanted Waste Management, the white conglomerate, to continue to have the contract to pick up your trash.
Well, you must understand that Waste Management has a history of contracts in waste management activity with this same city for about 35 years. They have made millions, probably over $1 billion. Why would they want to lose the contract? It makes no difference who had the lowest or best contract. Why would they want to lose it? And why you think the mayor decided he wanted to make a change? And why did the council not get with the mayor and say, we want to save the taxpayers some money, let's do something different? But it didn't happen. And I know the reasons why it didn't happen, to be discussed at another time.
Well, Doc, some parts of that we have to discuss now. The contract is currently being serviced by Richards Disposal Service, but the mayor has issued a new RFP, and that's a request for a proposal for a contractor to provide garbage collection services for another 5 years with several renewals, 3 5-year options, something like that. Interestingly enough, and this is getting to be really, really interesting, only 2 people responded to the request for proposal. 2 contractors responded for the request for proposal. One of them, a local firm owned by an outstanding young man here in the city of Jackson. His company is National Collection Services, NCS. And the other one is a black-owned firm out of New Orleans, Richards Disposal Services, which currently has the contract. Waste Management did not respond. Now, why do you think Waste didn't respond to the RFP?
Well, if I were in that situation and went through what I went through a few years ago, I would wait and see what's going to happen with the 2 vendors that did apply. And when there's a lot of discussion and negative activity and fussing and fighting in public, I would then have the RFP denoted to have another one issued, and that's when I would apply.
So you think there is going to be a second issuance of a new RFP, and then Waste will respond?
If they get to the point where that happens, because I can assure you that the leadership in almost any black town with just 2 opportunities to help blacks, and they have the history of helping the others that have always made the big money on the contracts, they will try to figure out some way to not give those black contractors an opportunity to make 5 or 10 million over a period of time.
But only 2 companies responded. So now all you got is 2 black firms. Now this is going to be a real problem for somebody. You only got options for 2. Now, you don't have a history of awarding contracts to black firms. You always choose white firms. But now you only have 2 black firms that responded. I wonder what is going to happen.
There is all ways of maneuver that you can come in and put together a proposal where things are changed. Now, usually this is done through two entities. One is the court system, and the other one is the legislature. Then you would find that someone would just take it upon him or herself to pass an edict, or what we call an executive order, to take over the process and say, you all can't handle it, and I'm going to take over, and we're going to bring in another possibility, another contractor to apply.
That didn't even respond.
Of course. It's similar with the water situation in Jackson. You get an outsider and say, you all can't manage your affairs, we're going to get an outsider because you can't keep the water on, you can't keep it fresh, you can't keep it clean. But today, we have the same problem we had 2 or 3 years ago.
So the white man's ice is not cold up.
I guarantee you, there's businesses closed, schools closed, all over certain parts of Jackson, and operating in other parts of Jackson.
Now, Doc, and I want to make certain that my viewers out there understand, and this is not a racist discussion, but there has been a serious lack of opportunity for African American firms. African American firms get less than 2% of contracts for goods and services from the state of Mississippi. Less than 1%, from the state of Mississippi. And yet we're 40-some% of the population. But that's bad, but that's not as bad as African Americans only getting less than 10% of contracts for goods and services in an 85% black city. Now, that's what's really, really sad. And that's what we're talking about here today. Now, we're going to watch this very carefully. We're getting ready to go to a station ID, so I want you guys to stay tuned with us. But when we come back, we're going to tell you how we're going to monitor the activities of the local government as it relates to the award of one of the major contract opportunities that the city of Jackson has to offer. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Are you dreaming of becoming an entrepreneur, but you're not sure where or how to start? At Entrepreneurs Academy 101, our online program will guide you step by step on how to start and grow your own business. We offer courses such as how to write a business plan, how to create a budget, and so much more. Our online training program is designed for you to learn a program. Because our academy is online, you have the choice to learn with a group, with friends, or individually. Upon completion of the entire curriculum, you will receive a certificate of achievement to acknowledge that you have completed the training needed to become a successful entrepreneur. So enroll today to design the life that you love. Contact your entrepreneur coach, Brenda Myers, at 601-672-0695 or visit our website at www.entrepreneursacademy101.com for more information.
Welcome back. This is Doc and Sock. we're having a lively debate about African Americans and the way they run the government, especially here in the city of Jackson and the state of Mississippi. If you're watching us on Facebook, share this program with your friends and family. Send us stars on YouTube. Subscribe to the program. We need your help. On We Believe digital platform, hit the donate button. Scroll down and listen to WBLV radio, or look at the playlist of all of the other programs that are running on that particular platform. And we're going to get right back into our discussion. Now, Doc, we only have 2 firms that are there, and you would think that it would be a slam dunk that one of these firms will get this contract for the next 5 years worth over $10 million and would do a good job.
It should be a slam dunk, but it will not be. I know the kind of people you're talking about. I've read the history of black politicians since the 1960s. They don't perform the way they should when they have the responsibility, because many of them are obligated to other people, and usually the other people are the ones that's been managing government all the time through their appointees. And you'll find that when that is the custom and the tradition, that's why a lot of people run for office, to get those $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 jobs. They make much more than that, double that, when they are wheeling and dealing with contractors and others that are providing services to the cities and the counties. That's why a police officer will take a job making $18,000 a year and can end up with a home in Florida, a boat, membership in a deer camp, and a mansion in the country.
Wow.
And his kids going to private school, making 18. Now, they make 30,000, 35 in some areas, but a lot of those people are rich. Don't nobody talk about it.
Wow. Now, Doc, what strategy would one use to keep either one of the black firms from being the recipient of this contract?
Well, now, if someone asked me that in another situation, I would tell them what I have known certain people to do. I've worked with the federal government for some years, state institutions, a lot of contracts being involved, and usually there's always a way around not giving a person a contract, even if you don't see any flaws in the RFP and their response to the request for the proposal. The first thing you have to do, if you don't want them, you get with your team and say, I don't want this person, even though they have a good record. They are not easy to work with. Currently, they have us in court. They sued us. We were trying to help them out. They sued us, and we don't want that. Then I would send my representatives to the other company, look at all the records I can find, and find something on the second company and say they have problems, and here they are. And you start debating and talking about and throwing out flaws in the public, so you can generate a lot of activity and misinformation and make people think that either one is sufficient to get a contract. And somebody's going to file a case, a suit against someone. Those that want it or those that don't want it, going to file a suit against the other. And that'll give the court system an opportunity to put a halt on this thing and say, we have reviewed it, and case law blank, blank, blank said that you must open it up to a third party.
Now, Doc, it sounds as if we're talking about the same tactics and strategies that they use to get elected in the first place. They do opposition research, and if you had a girlfriend on the side out there, they bring that up. You sound like you're saying that there is going to be the tactics of degrading both of these companies to the point that neither one of them will be sufficiently qualified to receive a contract that the only two of them bidding on.
Well, now they will be sufficiently qualified if you compare them with others, because there's no way in the world they could do anything that other companies have not done in the history of industrialization, past and present. Because most companies do everything they can to promote their interests. And the best thing they have going for them is what I call interpersonal relationships. And these companies own these politicians. If you look at their state, Secretary of State's Office of Information with the financial reports, and I did that once, and it surprised the whole research team. I found 5 major donors to a certain politician, and then we looked at who got the contracts. All 5 of them got 75% of the contracts in a certain city, in a certain county.
So why don't black folk donate to politicians and receive the same benefit?
Well, they don't have that much money to do that. See, the black person might donate, if he is a businessman, maximum, in very few cases, $5,000, $1,500, $1,000, or $500. They can afford to give their politician friends $40,000 and $50,000. Even if the law says you cannot give them $40,000, $50,000 from the company. All the company executives do, get together and tell each other, well, we are going to just say you pay $5,000 each, and we're going to give it back to you later. Now, that's against the law if it's discovered, but it happens every day. I've been involved in those kind of transactions.
Now, Doc, we're talking about 2 things here. We're talking about the politicians and how they get in a position to make these decisions. And you bring up a point that they come into office poor and they leave very wealthy. You take the mayor's position in the city of Jackson. It'll take $600,000 to win the mayor's race, which we have beginning in 24, the election in 25. It'll take $600,000 to win that seat, position that only pays $150,000 to $160,000. Why would anyone want to invest $600,000 for a job that pays $150,000?
I would do it tomorrow if I was interested in being a politician. Matter of fact, if I had to make $50,000 and had to spend $1 million, and if I wanted that job, I would make that $50,000 and spend $1 million to get it.
Why would you spend $1 million to get it? What's your return on your investment?
Oh, it'll be probably $3 million in the long term during that 4-year period.
Somehow you would receive some benefit that compensates you for your investment.
Yes, right. What I would do, I would make a deal with the people that have the money. You support me, and I know you all have conferences, you have board meetings, you have all kind of things going on, and I want to be the keynote speaker at your company meeting from time to time. You're going to have major programs, and I want to be the consultant, and I want to come in and talk, and let's negotiate a fee for my consultation or this speech, this keynote. They call them keynotes. And they say, well, we have been giving our keynotes $40,000 for a 30-minute speech and a 15-minute question and answer period. That's the way they make their money. So you get about 10 of those and do about 2 each per year at those big companies. You have that $1 million or that $2 million multiplied times 4. And you got 4 years in office, so you go in at a deficit and get out with a plus in 4 years. You made that $50,000 a year. And then if you look at your assets, you purchased 2 new cars since you've been in office. You were riding around in a car that the public paid for. You have security teams. They are being paid for by the taxpayers. But don't nobody think to look at your financial history and see where you spend your money. They don't see that you have bought some land down on the coast. They don't see that you have made some major investments in California. You bought stocks from the same person that you gave a big contract to. Don't nobody look at that.
Now, what you're describing happens
every day.
Every day.
Every day.
But it doesn't happen with black people.
Oh, it doesn't?
What you're talking about now is beyond the realm of black people's ability. You just said that black folk can't give big money to the politicians because they don't have it. And so they are locked out of the process then. And so there's no return for the black man. So when he votes for someone, what does the black man expect in return?
The black voter or the black
citizen voter,
or the black business owner?
What does both, the black voter, the black citizen, the black business owner, when he casts his vote, what is his expectation?
His expectation ought to be that these politicians that I put in office are going to look out for my general welfare. So I will have a great opportunity to enhance my skills, my training, by getting some kind of benefit from this county or from this city. I want my children to have a benefit from these votes that I give by having the money spent properly, improving the school system, making appointments that's going to be productive instead of putting people in these positions that's not qualified. And most politicians are in a position, and I've looked at this for years, they don't want to get anyone in positions of responsibility that they can't control. They don't do that. Look at President Trump, for instance. He packed the Supreme Court with a lot of conservatives, and in less than 3 years, look at some of the major legislation that were denied and changed because of his court appointees, abortion, many other things. That was thought there was a law that would never be attacked nor changed.
So the appointment to the Supreme Court was more about the distribution of economics and wealth than it was about law and social policy.
Well, they always said that if you want to change things and you don't want to take responsibility, you appoint someone to make the decision. That's what I would do.
Now, Barack Obama had an opportunity to make appointments to the Supreme Court. How many people did he put on it?
He didn't put anyone on that of any significance. They wouldn't vote on it. You know, you have to find you a good candidate for these big-time jobs. He or she will have to go to Congress for a hearing and let them sit up there and talk a few days about what they're going to do. So now, if you don't have the legislative support to open up a date and an opportunity for your candidate, or some just say, we're not going to have that deal at all until after you get out of office, boy. We're not going to give you this opportunity.
So he was denied the opportunity to make an appointment to the Supreme Court.
That's exactly a fact. That's a historical fact.
And that sealed the faith of economics to remain in the hands of those that have always had it, providing the fact that Barack was going to do something different.
Of course.
And maybe he would have promoted a conservative person, and maybe it wouldn't have been any difference, because I don't see a lot of difference in his policies that had any impact on black Americans.
Well, now his appointee probably wouldn't have been what I call a dead conservative. Those kind of black politicians would put what I call a moderate in office, one that will go any way they are told to go. And they usually have what I call that sleeping vote. Sometimes they vote and surprise you on certain issues. But they have major issues that they were told when they were interviewed that you cannot change regardless.
Now, let's think about this thing very carefully now, because my next question is really has to be considered. Are black folks going to be better off under white leadership than they are under black leadership?
Where?
In Jackson, in America, in Palestine, in the world. Are black folks going to be better off under European leadership than they are under African American leadership.
Historically, in the past and during the present, black folks are going to be worse off with any major change in the political scope
Hold
in
it now.
America.
Hold it. Let's stay right there for a minute. Black folk are going to be worse off.
Than they are today in Mississippi, in New York, in Chicago, in Philadelphia, in the big major cities in Texas and other places. Because of one word, gentrification. Black people are doomed in America as far as their positions of responsibility and their decision-making ability. These cities that are currently managed by blacks are going to be taken over through legislatures, through eminent domain. When they get ready to take that little house you own down there in South Jackson, the one down Ferry Street, or that little business that you have, that little club that you own, they're going to ask you to sell it to them. And you're going to say no, because you don't have to do it. You have the economic means to keep your property. Then they're going to come again and send a black person to tell you, Mr. Socrates, you need to sell that. You're hindering progress. They want to build a major school in the area. They want a private school there. They want to build a new office building there, and you're holding up progress. And you still say, no, my good friend, I am not going to sell. Then the legislature is going to get involved. And they're going to use something called eminent domain. They're going to come and tell you, Socrates, look at this paper. This is what your property is worth. We're going to give you fair value. And in 30 days, you got to move. It has to come to this city. You are holding up progress.
And sometimes the progress is just an open field.
Of course.
It doesn't have to have anything to do with public safety of the general population.
Of course not. That is not a consideration. Who is concerned about public safety when you're keeping someone from making millions of dollars 5 years in the future?
Now, Doc, if the black firms are not able to receive this contract, and let me just make it perfectly clear, because there are those of you that are out there that know that I have been very outspoken about my desire and my support for Richard's Disposal Service to keep the contract where he was the low bidder on versus Waste Management. I've lost a lot of great friends behind that. A lot of politicians that I helped raise and helped put in office, we fell out behind that. Because I have to stand fast on my principles that economics, black economics, ought to go to black business whenever there is an opportunity, and clearly on a professional service contract where you don't have to bid, that contract ought to go to a black firm. And so my position was that Richard's Disposal Service should be allowed to maintain that contract. But here we are now in a different scenario. Now we have two firms that are vying to receive this contract, and one of them happens to be a local black-owned business. Now, a local black-owned business trumps everything in my book. If you have an opportunity to do business with African Americans, you first look inside of your city limits, who is paying taxes here, who is invested in your community, and who lives and works here every day. That trumps everything. If you can't find that in the local African American business community, then outside to a firm like Richard's Disposal out of New Orleans is the next priority. If you cannot find a black firm anywhere in the country, Atlanta, New York City, that is willing to come into Mississippi to provide a service, then the next opportunity ought to be a mandatory joint venture between a major company like Waste Management and a small local firm in the city of Jackson. Those ought to be the pecking orders of how this works. but on no consideration ought to be given to a major conglomerate to pick up Jackson's trash when Jacksonians can pick up their own trash. So, Doc, if this gets away from the local black firm, I think that there ought to be marches in the street.
That will do no good, sir.
Okay.
What did marches get black folks? What did sit-ins and pray-ins get black folks doing integration? They were very destructive with those sit-ins and marches and prayer-ins. They lost most of their businesses. They lost most of their self-pride. I'm talking about black folks. They lost opportunities in all areas of activity: religion, education and training, economic development, leadership, because they were not able to produce. Your problem and the problem that blacks have, they continue to allow the same people to remain in office until they retire or die. And when you want some change, Mr. Socrates, if you don't want to run for office, I'm just using you as an example, you have to do what I've been teaching for years. You have to recruit, train, select, and appoint your own politicians, your own educators. There are a lot of young people out there that's 17 to 40 years of age that can be recruited to run for office, males and females. And the black people can put them in office. Business people like you and others can pool your resources. You give them $10,000 and 5 others give the person $10,000. That's $50,000 there. Others can give $30,000. And then sometimes you just have to break down and make major investments after you talk to the people, because if you have your own people in, once they get in, they are going to give you the contract. Just that simple.
Well, Doc, I hope you're right. As always, our time just gets away from us. Now, I have a caller here that is asking us to advise that Sonia Sotomayor should fill the vacancy created by retirement of Justice David H. Souter, and she would be the best candidate. She was confirmed by the United States Senate on August 6, 2009, by a vote of 68 to 31, and she should be considered to fill the vacancy created by the retirement of Justice David H. Souter. Now, the caller is listening, and the caller says that these are the kind of things that we should be advocating right along with how do we correct the economic injustices that are going on in our cities every day. I appreciate you, caller. Now, Doc, we're out of time. Black people are poor. They're hurting. They're unhealthy. They are uneducated.
No, let's say miseducated. Black folks got some of the best education in America, in certain areas, in certain cities, in certain towns, but it's miseducated, not uneducated.
Now, Doc, I hear you. I'll give you that. But I see that there's a tremendous skid downward in African American economics and the family structure and the positions of power and influence. We've tried black politicians. I am so disappointed with our children. Our children have not given us the same opportunities that Maynard and Harold Washington and Marion Barry and Harvey Johnson and folk like that provided to the community. Our children have not done that for us, and that's disheartening. That makes me wonder, what direction must we go in now to try to solve this economic injustice that's going on in our city, in our state? You have any solutions?
Put, I told you before, and I've been telling you all for 10 years, it's simple. You have to train your own leaders. They are out there. You have to recruit them, select them, train them, and then put them in responsible positions. You start them off as interns so they can be shattered and mentored by the politicians that's currently in office, by the preachers, by the industrial leaders, by the presidents and vice presidents of community organizations while they are in their early 20s, mid-20s. And by the time they're 28 to 32, they are ready to be the sheriff, the mayor, member in the legislature, be able to run for governor. Hell, the age limit is 18 up. You could be the president of the United States at age 45. You could be the mayor, the sheriff, and others at 21, 22, 23. It doesn't take but 3 to 5 years to make a political change with new appointments if you find your own people, finance them, and then you do something that most people don't do. You have to look at who votes. And in the black community, that is never a problem. You're not going to have many voters. So you go and recruit those that's not voting as your votees for this new person that you've selected, trained, and put in position of responsibility, and you'll win every time.
Doc, we're going to have to end it there, but we're going to keep you informed as this real serious opportunity, this economic opportunity is in front of the citizens of Jackson. This is equal to the crisis that we're having with water and pipes bursting and economic deprivation. All of these things ought to be considered as very, very important. We're going to see how our leaders, our elected officials, handle this situation this time around. This is the second time around. Maybe we'll get it right this time. Doc, any parting shots for your viewers?
All I want the viewers to understand is, and I want to talk to you very clear, if you don't determine your destiny where you're in the majority, starting on the precinct level, recruit, train, select, and place the leaders that you work with in positions of responsibility, your situation is going to get worse. You're not going to live in the inner cities because you're not going to have any inner cities where you can afford to live. You're going to be moved to the fringes and to the rural communities. And since you don't own any land, and if you all that own it have not put a will together so your kids can get it, so they're going to lose it. They don't even know to pay taxes on it because you hadn't taught them to do so. So black people in America and the world will be worse off in the next 15 to 30 years than they are today. And I'm only concerned about those that are 65 years of age or younger. 65, 66 and up. 66 years and up, not going to have to worry too much because they are going to be able to float in this water until they leave here.
Doc, we're looking for a better quality of life than floating in the water. So I hear what you're saying, and we're going to continue to deal with that. But he's given you a specific strategy to change your life and change the course that we see, that we know is off track. The black agenda is off track. We got to get it back in focus. But now, this has been Doc and Sock for this Friday night. We hope that you have a wonderfully safe weekend. It's cold out there. Stay safe and join us again Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. Good evening. Good evening. I'm Socrates Garrett, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African-American-owned broadcasting studio. WeBelieveDigital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African-American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. On We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations discussions and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again.